So we still got to wait another night. Tomorrow night, game 4 right here in Sunrise. Panthers, Oilers. Panthers looking to take a stranglehold over the series if they can defend the home ice tomorrow night. And joining us now, former Panther coach, first ever Panther coach to lead the team to a Stanley Cup final appearance, Doug MacLean here with us. Doug, great to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us. The funniest thing about the team that you took to the finals in 1996, as a huge Florida Panther fan myself, my entire life, for, at the time, 27 years, all right, here on radio, I would tell people, you don't know what it was like back in 1996. It was unbelievable. You couldn't get tickets, all right? This town was hockey crazy. Miami Arena was an incredible barn. And now we're in a place where 3 consecutive Stanley Cup Finals appearances, I don't have to just brag about how amazing 96 was anymore. Like, we get to make these memories now in real time. What do you remember best about 1996?
You know what? It was pretty bizarre, to be quite honest, because we went there and there was real concern that year with whether we were going to make the playoffs. It was year 3 of the franchise. I remember talking to Brian Murray and Bill Torrey, during the interview process, and they were nervous about hiring me because we had to make the playoffs. It was pressure to make the playoffs, and I didn't know what to expect. And I remember game 1, we go into Jersey, we lose 4-1 on the road. And I remember in the flight back to Florida, everybody was a basket case. Brian was uptight. We didn't play very well. We got it. Then we come home and we win 5 in a row. And all of a sudden at Christmas, we're in first place, in the conference. And, obviously we had a great year. And then the playoffs was crazy how well our team played. But look, it was a great 2 or 3 years. And, I remember when I got fired in year 3 and they won the first game after they fired me and they lost 17 in a row. And I mean, it was an ugly 10, 12 years in South Florida. It was ugly. I chuckle when I hear now everybody wants to play in Florida. Everybody wants to play for the Panthers. And, we're the franchise. And I'm thinking for 12, 15 years, they couldn't get anybody to go there other than the guys they drafted. So it's a great rebound story for me, how it finally took some tough ownership, some owners that went through years and years of losing a fortune with that team. They still had their base. Those 11,000 original Panther fans are still there, which blows me away. But it's been tough. And finally, Viola buys the team. And look, I talked to Dale Talon the other night for an hour. And it was tough sledding. And now it's just a great turnaround story. It really is.
I like that you mentioned that fan base that they had that stuck with them through all the lean years. I mean, now every game is sold out the last few years, an amazing atmosphere. But I remember all those years. I mean, it was 12 straight years, no playoffs, 2000 to 2012. And I remember, folks would make fun about how few people are in the building. And it's like, those people that are in the building, those are the best fans in the world. They show up every night. They love this team, even though they're terrible.
I'd go to the odd game. I live in Delray in the wintertime, and I'd go down to the odd game. And I was blown away the number of, 96 jerseys that I would see with people, the old logo and talk to a few fans from, the back in the day. I'm serious. They were an unbelievable loyal group. And you're 100% right. They have stuck with the team through thick and thin. And, that's what I love about it is those original fans. And I play golf with a couple of guys there a couple times a week that were fans from the 96 team. And the guy that, the caddy, the guy, not the caddy, but the guy that cleans the clubs, big Panther fans and have been for years. So they're being rewarded. And I think that's one of the most fun parts. I was thinking about Bill Torrey the other day when I was talking to Dale. Bill would have loved this. I mean, he went through, Bill was there when we had the big run, and then it was a lean 12 years that Bill had to grind his way through multiple owners, multiple GMs, multiple coaches. So it's really been a great story.
Are you in touch still with any of your former players from that team?
You know what? They were a group that you run into every once in a while. I'll run into Brian Screwlin at a golf outing. I'll run into Beezer in a rink in Chicago. I'll run into Mike Huff at some function. I mean, Billy Lindsay, I'll see him the odd time when I'm down there. Ray Shepard, I'd run into him out at Pine Tree the odd time if I get invited to play there. He's a member, of course, but Ray's, by the way, struggling with a health issue right now. But look, so Paul Laws, I heard from a few years ago. There was something that happened there. But look, it's just Dave Lowry I've always been in touch with. So they were a special group. And you know what? People say, well, how did that team do so well? Doesn't surprise me because that group of players did really well in life. There wasn't hardly a guy off that team that hasn't been successful in other avenues in their lives because they were such a character. Tommy Fitzgerald, Billy Lindsay, Dave Lowry, Eddie Jovanovski. I mean, how many? I mean, they're all Dvorak and all these kids, Niedermeyers. They're all successful guys, because of the heart and character they had, as players. So it doesn't surprise me, really.
I love hearing you mention all those names. It's so great. Paul Maurice talks right now about how special this current group is. Just, the room that they have, amazing guys. How important is it? It sounds like those guys in '96 had it. How important is it for, those guys in the dressing room to be together and the type of character that they have to have?
It's funny when you look at it. Kachuk was the big trade because, it was a setup that he wanted to go to Florida, and Calgary were caught in the situation and they had to do the best they could with Huberdeau and Weegar to make that deal. But to me, he's that type of kid. He grew up in that Kachuk family. I coached against his dad. I know what he was like. His brother in Ottawa is the same makeup. They'll do whatever it takes to win. And I really believe he was one of the guys that set the tone. But let's not forget Bobrovsky. The owner told Dale, I want to get the best goalie I can get. And Dale went and got Bobrovsky. And I'll tell you what, whether people want to believe it or not, you look at this last Stanley Cup and right where they are today, Bobrovsky was not good in game 1 and 2 against the Leafs. Bobrovsky found his game, and all of a sudden he's the story for me again and again and again. And Dale went and got him. Barkov, 5th in the draft, I believe he was. I mean, this guy is a valuable, valuable player. What he brings. So you got Kachuk with his character and grit and determination and skill, and you got the big horse Barkov that can shut down other people's players. And then the additions they made with the Reinhart and Bennett, guys that were expendable in these other teams.
Yeah.
And they were astute moves by Zito to bring him in. Paul gets fired in Winnipeg. Well, he says he quit, but I know he got fired. I mean, you know what? And all of a sudden, it's a good fit for Paul. There was no pressure when he went in there. But you know what? I've been told that they made the playoffs by 1 point in Zito and Paul's first year. And if they would have not made the playoffs, who knows what would have happened. It was that crazy a time, But Bill has done a good job. Paul has done a good job. They've made some astute moves, and they have come together like I can't believe how well they've come together. And they're a more talented group than we had, but they are the same mental makeup as we had. The very same. Beezer was the horse for us in the back end, and Bobrovsky's the horse. Barkov's the horse up front, the big guy that can shut down and make plays. So I just, everybody's a great story. It's like our team. Verhaeghe's a great story. Forsland's a great story. Picking up Jones is a great story. And there's so many great stories. And I chuckled today because I'm looking at I'm actually doing a new book called A Day in the Life of an NHL GM, and I chuckle what happens this time of year. Every GM in the NHL is watching the finals and saying, what do we have to do to make our team like the Panthers? Yeah. What do we have to do to make our team like the Panthers? So that's the compliment. That's the biggest compliment you can get, is everybody in the league is trying to emulate the Panthers. that's a credit to Viola and Paul and Bill and their whole staffs. Let's not kid ourselves.
Doug, let's talk about what's going on right now with this series. What did you make of what happened in the third period the other night? Was that Edmonton, saying, hey, we're not going anywhere, we got a lot of fight in us, or was that more of a meltdown?
I think that, it's funny how you look at it. If they didn't do anything, people would be ripping them for cowering if they didn't do anything. Then they did what they did, which was, look, it's on discipline. But you know what? It's all about sending messages this time of year. It was a message, we're not going to go down without a fight. Other people took it as on discipline. My beef with the game was you cannot take 4 penalties in the first period in a Stanley Cup final and think you're going to win. You just can't do that. The stuff at the end is frustration boiling over. I dare say if the Panthers are on the other side, they would have done the same thing, or at least because I want to see that. I want to see you go down with a fight. So undisciplined in the first period, frustration in the third period, and it doesn't matter. It's if they don't win the next game, Edmonton, it's over. Because they're not going to win there's not a chance they're going to win 3 games out of the last couple, or 4, or 3 out of 3, whatever it is. They're not going to. And I said the same thing with the Panthers. If the Panthers didn't win game 2 in Edmonton, they weren't beating Edmonton 4 out of 5. I guarantee you. If they went down 2-0, they weren't winning. They did against the Leafs. They weren't going to do it against this team. But for me tonight, tomorrow night, if Skinner doesn't match Bobrovsky, Panthers win.
Yeah, what do you make of the goalie situation there with Edmonton? Like, do you expect Skinner to be back in the net?
He'll be back in the net, in my opinion. I know Pickard come in when they were down 2-0 in LA, but that was in the first round. That's a big difference than saying I'm going to go with my backup in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah,
big difference. If they do, I won't believe it, but we'll see. But to me, that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, Edmonton in the first period had all kinds of chances to be in the game, and Skinner wasn't bad. He wasn't bad. He was okay. But this time of year, if your goaltender isn't great, you don't win. Mm-hmm. The Panthers don't win last year without Bobrovsky being great, and they're not going to win this year without Bobrovsky being real good.
How we know Connor McDavid, he's the best player in the world. Draisaitl, I mean, hey, he may be close to second best player in the world. But this Panther team, they come at you in waves, right? I mean, how huge is that for this team that those top 3 lines, I mean, they traded for Brad Marchand, they throw him on the third line there. Like, how huge is that?
Well, for me, you look at the Oil and the Oilers, to me, a little bit of their lack of depth is showing up. With the Skinners they want to try to put in, and Arvidsson and some of these guys that are in their bottom 6 simply aren't even comparable. And McDavid and Draisaitl superstars. Perry's been a good story. Bouchard's been a good story. I get all that. But the depth, and you hit the nail on the head. When that third line is one of the best lines in the playoffs, and since they put that third line together with Marchand there, and those 2 kids are real good players. Mm-hmm. One of them was a draft of Dale's, and one of them was a trade with Carolina, which they gave up some good players in that deal. And
I think that was the Trocheck trade.
Trocheck deal, totally Trocheck deal. And all of a sudden, that line is as important and maybe more important than any line on the team. I mean, Reinhardt scored the other night, which was good to see. But listen, they've carried offensively. That line has been unbelievable. But they're also unbelievable because they play playoff style hockey. And Marchand, I mean, seriously, Marchand looked like he was slowing down in Boston. And all of a sudden now I watch him and he's got a whole nother step. He's brought an element to the team. He's got the leadership. I had a kid tell me with the Boston Bruins, he was a rookie with the Boston Bruins, and his name was Sean Corrali. Made the Boston Bruins, and he told me 2 years after we're talking, and he said he could not believe what an unbelievable leader Brad Marchand was on the Boston Bruins. He said how he treated the kids. When you made the Boston Bruins and you became a Boston Bruin, Brad Marchand took you under his wing as a leader. And I'm just blown away. I've watched this kid since he was 12 playing in a hockey school here in PEI. And I watched him in Moncton in junior. This is a kid that he's had to pay his dues to make it, man. And I'll tell you what, it's good on him. It's good on him.
Doug, tell everybody how they can get your book. I know you just mentioned it earlier.
Well, I actually wrote a book called Draft Day 2 years ago, and it's out. It's actually been a bestseller in Canada and really doing well in the U.S. It just came out in paperback, and it's called Draft Day. If you're interested in the draft, there's some great draft stories in there, and it's the history of it, but it's good. And the new one won't be coming out for another year, and it's going to be a day in the life of an NHL general manager. What really happens as an NHL GM? So I'm just interviewing all kinds of GMs. So that's why I spent an hour on the phone with Dale the other night, and it was just a blast talking to him. So I had coffee in Delray a month ago with Rimmer. And Ron Hextall lives in Delray now, and Dale lives in Boca. So we had a coffee at Starbucks there, man. It was just a great couple of hours of BSing,
That's a good crew right there. Doug, really appreciate you spending some time with us here. Enjoy the rest of the series. And then, of course, the summertime. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
No problem, man. And thanks for having me on. All the best to the Panthers.